Hello, everybody, and welcome back in to Wildly Informed. Brett Marshall, your host here, back alongside Isha Jerome for another episode. Hoping I remember how to do this whole podcast thing because it feels like it's been a couple weeks. It has, but we had the holidays go through. Isha, how are your holidays?
Oh, they were my holidays is World Juniors, so it went.
I'm sure we'll talk about your holidays a little bit.
Mixed feelings. Okay, as a Canadian, well, I guess I'm living in the States. I'm dual citizen, so I guess I'm American now. But as the resident Canadian of the Sota Pod network, it hurt a little bit there. But I will say, and we were talking right before going live here, that like this was one of the best World Junior tournaments that I've seen easily in the last 5 years, and I would argue in the last 10 years. So my holidays was low key. I didn't go back to Canada to visit family as I'm going back in a few months in the spring to all see them. So hung out with some friends here, had some good dinners, ate well, drank well, watched a lot of sports. There was some good boxing, some good MMA, but the World Juniors is my holidays. And I watched every single game, and I think we streamed 8 or 9 of them, maybe even like 10 on the channel. So I just was all in with hockey, to be honest, this holiday season. Less Wild, which is good, because honestly, if I watched more Wild than World Juniors, then I would have probably just been like fighting everybody on Twitter who said that Boldy sucks. Idiots. But anyways, how was your holiday?
Yeah, it was busy. I think like 6 or 7 different stops from like 3:00 Christmas Eve to like 3:00 Christmas Day. So, but lots of fun. Great to see some family. I had a cousin that him and his wife, who live in Nashville, came up. So it's the first time I've seen them probably since like last summer. So nice to see them, catch up and see family and spend that time away. And just kind of, I took a couple weeks off of work. So just to kind of reset and get into what now is 2025. We are the Parisi Suter buyouts end this year. It's like that's a Christmas present to all Wild fans. Like the wait's finally over. 2025 is here. We're now in the months countdown.
We are now in the months countdown where we can spend all that money re-signing Kaprizov.
Yep, and
which honestly no one should be upset about.
No,
that's
not
the thing.
At all.
We should be happy that we have that money now coming to sign him.
For sure.
Good to see Andrew, Urban, and Chris, my buddy Chris, one of our exclusive members in the chat here. Sis is this NHL. What's up, dude? Happy holidays and happy New Year to all you guys, if I didn't say so already. But yeah, man, I know you said you didn't watch too much of the World Junior Championship, but like, I know you kept tabs on all of it, and obviously you watched like the medal games, but like overall, what were some of your highlights? What were some of the storylines that stood out for you?
Yeah, I think it was just another year that goes to show how important it is to keep like the non-Big 4, Big 5 countries like out of it, and why you include and have relegation and promotion, all that stuff. Like what a story for Latvia, like just what they were able to do, and like and not just do it in one game, right? Like they held the US tight for a while. Like they played a really strong tournament. You know, it's always cool to see, you know, guys like Eric Smateko, you know, maybe not, you know, a good prospect, but not one people talk about a lot. And he goes out and has like balls out for Latvia, and just like seeing those kinds of storylines.
Their goalie.
And
Felsberg. Like, dude, he's not drafted yet. He plays in the Q. This is his first year in the QMJHL, which he's doing pretty good. Like, if you look at his numbers, they're fine. I dug in a little bit deeper, and he played in the Latvian men's league as a 16 and 17-year-old. And again, Latvian men's league, take it for, you know, a grain of salt. But he had a freaking 96 or 97 save percentage over there. So, like, clearly talent, right? Playing against men and then coming over to Quebec and doing pretty well. He's going to be drafted this year. Late pick probably, but he's going to be drafted this year. Germany and Switzerland played really competitive games as well. Like that, the States beat Germany 10-4, but Germany wasn't out of it. You know, they were out of the game, but they weren't out of it competitively in that third period. They scored a goal there and were actually like still pushing the pace, right? They didn't like give up in those games. And that's everyone but Kazakhstan, I thought, played very well and better than I expected as far as like the lower tier teams, like Switzerland and obviously Latvia in particular.
Well, then the Kazakhstan, like they're the one of the most exciting games. That's actually one that I watched the most of. It was the Kazakhstan and Slovakia game, and Kazakhstan like gets this 5-minute major. They're down 2 goals. Like, this is over. Like as they were starting to kind of claw back, they score like 2 shorthanded goals, like tie the game. Unfortunately, I think they went on to lose like in a shootout, but like just it's things like that, because I think like it's the same reason I think with the World Juniors that makes the state high school tournament so fun is like we're talking about kids here. Like they're under 18 kids in the state high school tournament. They're even younger than that. And like things get emotional. Like I always like tell people like think back to yourself at like 16, 17, 18 years old. Like you didn't have your head on straight. You overreacted to things. I think that's what makes those games so fun is you get these huge adrenaline and momentum swings because these are kids, right? They're still learning how to like even manage their own emotions, and it makes the game like, and the fans and the atmosphere all feeds into that, right? Especially like games Canada's playing in because it's the home crowd, and or if it's the US and it's the anti-US crowd mostly, like
or the anti-Czech and anti-US crowd them playing each other. I swear the arena was full of just Canadians hate watching that game, booing the Czechs, booing the Americans.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, I felt bad because like I have like a soft spot in my heart for Ottawa because like they're just like, they're just pushed to the side next to Montreal and like Toronto in the Canadian markets, and it's like, all right, the World Juniors this year, this is gonna be our year. We're coming back from the quarterfinal loss last year. Nope, losing quarterfinals again to the Czechs. But and again, you can't be mad at like the boys. It seemed like obviously some undisciplined play, but like it's Hockey Canada is, for lack of a better term, completely fucked right now on all levels. So yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe they can redeem themselves in Four Nations or something. Who knows?
yeah, or Olympics. I mean,
yeah.
You know what's crazy though is like Jordan Binnington might be Canada's Olympic goalie. Yep. Yeah. Unless Fleury just like doesn't want to retire and plays at like however old he'll be at that point, 42, 43. But
in the US,
honestly, I'd rather 43-year-old Fleury coming off friggin' doing management work with the Wild than probably Jordan Binnington. But anyways.
Well, didn't we talk about how hilarious it would be to have Fleury and Binnington?
Oh, yeah.
I think we talked about that on here.
I mean, hopefully somebody rises to the occasion for Canada, because that's the only, like on the Olympic level anyways, like that's the only, I guess, weak spot for Canada where the States has like the edge on us. Other than that, it's like
my guess is
a dead even competitiveness, I think. Did
Aiden Hill make it as one of the goalies?
Like I think he for Four Nations, yeah, but like again, are we leaning on? Will Aiden Hill be that guy come Olympic time in 2 years? We'll see. I hope so, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. But no, like I said, this year for the World Juniors, because of how competitive and how there were very little blowouts, like there was the Kazakhstan Czechia game and there was the United States Germany game. There weren't any other blowouts other than that, and Finland. I did not expect Finland to be this good coming in. I didn't think they were going to have the depth to be this good coming in. And on the flip side, I didn't think Slovakia was going to be this bad coming in. So those are the two that I was like shocked in a good way for Finland, in like oof way for Slovakia, and then obviously just Canada. I didn't think Canada was going to win this year. $175 betting on the Americans, not a big deal. But and they won me money last year too, so I might have just like continued the trend next year. But I didn't think that they would, post beating Finland in the first game, just look so stale and be so undisciplined. And honestly, like, don't ever like Dave Cameron in the Canadian Tire Center again, because he just curses whatever team he coaches there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the cool thing, like if you're from a Wild fan perspective, obviously Zeev Buium was awesome that whole tournament. Like went full Faber with logging minutes. Like didn't necessarily have all the points to show for it, but like puts a stamp on it with just
he was good,
and the gorgeous saucer pass to win the tournament. Like a perfect pass into open space that a guy can skate into. Like that's awesome. And then you look on the other side of the ice. I think Aron Kiviharu led the Finns in ice time in that game. Like they really leaned on him late. Rasmus Kumpalainen stepped in, made a stamp. I don't think Sweeney saw a ton of ice time, but like you had 4 Wild prospects in that tournament, and they come out with a gold and 3 silvers. Like pretty cool. Like on that aspect. So especially
absolutely.
We don't know how many players we'll see, if any, who knows next year. But I think Sweeney and Kiviharu are eligible again next year, so they're probably shoo-ins. But the other ones remain up in the air. So it was cool from a Wild
goaltender too, man. Rimpinen. I know he doesn't have a Wild connection, but I don't believe he's drafted yet either. And oh man, was he good! Like it for me, it's the greatest tournament in sports. Like I know the high school tourney here in Minnesota, it rivals it, but it's a quick one weekend, finals. Whereas this is just something special. And I mean, the Minnesota Gophers represented well. Brody Zemer was awesome. Oliver Moore was awesome. Unfortunately, Canada cut Matthew Wood. I bet they're regretting that now. Which, by the way, Brett, did you know that Matthew Wood actually is from my hometown of Nanaimo, and actually, like, his parents' place is near my parents' place? And when we interviewed him, when we went to Mariucci, like, it was funny there. Some of the guys working with the Gophers were like, Matthew Wood, he's not the most chatty guy, right? You got to kind of warm up. He has to warm up to you to kind of talk and answer questions in depth. As soon as he found out I was from Vancouver Island, dude, he would not stop talking the whole time. So that was super cool to get to know some of the guys, and obviously super proud of the Gopher representatives who come back home with gold.
Yeah, so great for the U.S. back to back. Going to be a lot tougher next year, I think. I don't know. They don't have as many returning players, I think, but some of their best players, I think Cole Hudson is eligible to return next year, so it'll be cool. Especially, really excited. I'm hoping we see some tickets, like single game tickets that are actually affordable, eventually here, because I would love to. My dad and I, we had already talked about I'll take some PTO and we'll go watch a couple of the games, but I haven't seen anything yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, and look, if you can't get in the door for the big dogs, it's worth just going for the atmosphere, even if you're going to watch. I mean, who knows? Latvia might be an expensive ticket now based on how they play. But you know what I mean? Going to some of even those games, which are going to be cheaper, especially on the secondary market when people are selling those ones that they got in their package or whatnot. That's what I did when they came to Victoria and Vancouver a few years ago. I went to the Kazakhstan games, I went to the Austria games, those. Just to get the vibe, to feel the vibe, and just all the festivities down at the rink that was going on. And my girlfriend at the time actually got us Canada Czech tickets, and it turned out to be a blowout. Canada absolutely destroyed them, but I got to meet James Duffy and Bob McKenzie, which was awesome.
Heck yeah! All right, well, we got a great show today. Get a little bit of World Juniors recap there. We'll talk briefly about the wild penalty kill. We've been asked about it, so I dug into it a little bit, had a little more real brief on that. I'll talk about Marco Rossi and just the awesome season he's having, and just kind of where that stacks up against the other centers in the league to kind of figure out where he fits in. And then for a fun time in our Puck Your Opinion segment, Isha and I did quarter century teams, but instead of just first and second team, we built out entire rosters. Neither of us have seen the other one yet, so looking forward to debating which players we put on, which players we left off. So we got a lot of good stuff. I'm excited. It'll be good.
Yeah, well, let's start off with what you wrote in your last blog. I love the images you shared with it as well, and I'll bring them up on screen when we get there.
Yeah, so this week's blog, newsletter, whatever you want to call it, I really want to dive into the wild penalty kill. And I'll preface it with by saying I by no means understand the speed of the NHL because I never played the NHL. So it's a little bit more X's and O's based, but I did play hockey in Minnesota for 14 years. I've been watching it since I was 2 and followed it very closely. And I think I've got a pretty good understanding of the basics, the fundamentals of what good and bad looks like. So I wanted to kind of use that knowledge I have, take a look at some of the analytics as to what the numbers suggest, and just see can I really figure out what the hell is wrong with the wild penalty kill? And the conclusions I came up with, there's kind of 4 different things. But one is there are 2 main styles that you defend on a 5-on-4 penalty kill: a box and a diamond. A diamond's used more often in the NHL to defend umbrellas, which is where you have 3 guys kind of higher up in the zone. And the Wild just seemingly don't have the ability to do that. If you look at, I think a little bit further down, there's a heat map of where shots come from. Yeah, right there. And those 3 spots are the 3 sides of the umbrella, basically the left side, the right side, the top. And it's because they're and notice in between that you can draw a nice little box where there's no shots. So they're defending an umbrella power play incorrectly, and they're getting beat because of it a lot. They're not winning faceoffs. We saw that again last night, where they got scored on pretty much right off a draw. Those are 2 of the biggest ones that I've noticed. And also just bad spots with being aggressive. They'll pinch at wrong times. They'll chase at the wrong times. They'll send too many players after one guy. So there are a myriad of things. I think the one thing kind of digging into a little more taught me is I am less convinced it's a systems issue, even though the box of diamond is a problem. It's the same players that make these same mistakes. It's almost 2 guys get what they're supposed to be doing and 2 guys don't. And the 2 guys that get it are constantly trying to cover up for these other 2 guys. And that's where all the breakdowns kind of happen. So Yeah, like it's still a glaring issue for them. A crazy stat I've pulled, they are 11, 10, and 3 when they allow a goal on the kill. They're 15, 1, and 1 when they don't take a penalty or the penalty kill is perfect. Like if that, like it's a perfect like summary of the season. Like when they don't take penalties or they kill them off, like they are elite because they win at 5-on-5.
Right.
Like, and they have all year. But it's the second they start taking too many penalties, giving up those power play goals, where things start to unravel. So either can they continue to take less? Can they start to kill it off? Who knows? My hope is that with Middleton back now, I think he's one of their better killers. I think Trenyon's actually, like in a lot of these clips, he's usually the one in the right position, and everybody else isn't. So I'm hoping maybe leaning on those two can help. But yeah, still sucks. Maybe we know a little bit more now why.
Well, Middleton coming back is just going to help just so much because we saw how much of a rhythm him and Faber were in and the chemistry they developed, and it allowed for depth right now with, obviously like Brodin, he's going to play hurt the whole year, right? He's going to get his surgery at the end of the year, and it just made it so that last pairing couldn't just be limited minute Bogosian and the revolving door of guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of been a problem. Although I will say I have been impressed with Declan Chisholm. Like he's
been playing really well.
Out of all the guys who have needed to rise to the occasion, he has, and I think he's been like checking all the boxes. And I mean, he's making a case for the Wild to keep him. Now, how is he going to fit in that equation moving forward? That's a conversation for another day. So whether he forces them to keep him around and they make, some changes with like the Bogosians or whatnot, or dude, they trade him to get some draft picks or use them in a sweetener to get a piece, an offensive piece, a scoring piece before the playoffs. Like regardless, they got him for free last year, and he's proven to be a top 4 defenseman, which is awesome.
Well, the really interesting thing with him, and I think Russo brought this up, like the way his contract currently stands, like we all kind of assumed he'd be a UFA after this year, but I think if he plays, I think it's 80 games this year, he actually becomes a restricted free agent, where like it goes from Chisholm could have this choice of, well, like, yeah, you can keep me around, but if Bouillam's on the team, like that makes me the 4th left defenseman. Like, and then Bogosian's there too. So like, am I the 7? Am I the 8? Like, no, I want to go play somewhere. But all of a sudden he plays 80 games. Now the Wild have the control where they can now turn him in, flip him for an asset, or maybe they can work out some kind of deal with him. Maybe it's waiting, putting Bouillam in Iowa for, a season or half a season just to kind of learn the ropes, similar to what we saw with kind of Boldy, right? So it'll be really interesting to see, like, one, if he can stay healthy, and if he hits that 80 game, I think it's 80 game. If he hits that threshold, it'll be interesting offseason with him, but it's a good problem to have when you have, you're looking at, hey, we have 8 really quality, and if you dig deeper and you believe like a Lambos or a Spacek, like you're looking at 8 to 10 defensemen that could play in an NHL lineup, which I think is exciting.
Well, could play in an NHL lineup, young, and who have value still.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, again, right now, as far as the Wild's prospect pool and even just guys who are almost ready for the NHL, it's on the management now more. I mean, obviously it's always on the players to like continue to prove themselves and play at the best of their abilities, but like it's really on the manager to be like, okay, Judd Brackett did his job. Your pro scouts did their job. How are you guys going to now utilize these pieces on the ice or in trades to get the team together to get past the goddamn first round of the playoffs?
Yeah. Who knows? We'll see.
All right, let's get to the meat on the bone then. The analytics agenda this week, and the chat's already chiming into it, guys. So we'll dive into it. Is Marco Rossi a top center?
All right. Yeah. So is Marco Rossi a true number 1 center? I think, like, preface the whole conversation, I think we talked about on the last show before Christmas, like the next show we did, we wanted to talk about Rossi because of just like the breakout is here. Like he's clearly taken that next step, and we've seen him so much, especially as of late, just how much he stepped up with timely goals. Obviously, he had the 4 assist game against I forget who that was against, but recently had the 4 assist game. He had like he was just named NHL's like first star of the week. Like you talked about Declan Chisholm rising to the occasion. You know, Kaprizov goes down. When it happened a couple years ago, it's Boldy that kind of stepped up, filled the void, and this time Marco Rossi said, "Hey, I got it this time." And he's
really almost point per game right now, guys. Yeah. Like top centers are point per game players. Just saying.
Yeah. So it was a little bit of a clickbaity title. It's more of like here's how much he's stepped up. And like, I think if you look at the numbers, like there's a lot of really good stuff when we dig into it here. Some stuff that, you know, there's still room for improvement, but like, this is a guy that I think if there were any doubts that he can be a top 6 center, like as his floor for the NHL career, like is he a 2C for the rest of his career? Absolutely. I think he's shown that this year. Like you look like this is among about 150 or so players, or excuse me, centers. And it's who Natural Stat Trick defines the center. So there's some that play wing and maybe like wings that are listed as centers. So I would say the actual rankings are a little iffy. But like we're looking at a guy that's top 20 in points among centers. Like that's a number 1 center, right? Like you're in the top 20 of scoring. And I think like the ones that really stood out is just like for such a small player, how he's able to get to the net, 10th among centers and individual high danger chances, tied for 37th individual expected goals. Like for a small player, he knows how to get to the dirty areas. We've seen it over and over again with stopping on the post, finding rebounds. The tying goal the other night against Washington, he like redirects it, follows his own rebound, and then scores on the rebound. Like it's just these high IQ plays. And like, I think there was maybe some thoughts, especially prior to this recent run of, well, is he being carried by Kaprizov? And if you actually look into like his without on ice numbers with Kaprizov, like there's a slight uptick with Kaprizov, but it's like maybe 1% or like 1.5% changes in his numbers.
Yeah. It's not like Zuccarello with Kaprizov.
Yeah. And
without, right?
Well, even like Kaprizov's game is heavily elevated by playing with Rossi. Like Kaprizov gets better, is a better player when he's on the ice with Rossi. And I think it's such a testament to his IQ, like all the things we were really excited about when the Wild drafted him, the playmaking, the work ethic, and just like to look at where he was a couple years ago from a, 19 game sample, whatever. It's like the 1 assist, go down to Iowa for the rest of the year. And then to come out last season, bounce back. And then this year really take that big next step has been really, really cool to see because he's put in the work and it's really showing off.
I mean, at this rate, he could get 28 to 30 goals, and that's realistic.
Yeah, I think when I look up his pace yesterday was 30 goals, 44 assists, I think, and 74 points right now. So it's pretty good.
And he's only 23.
Yeah, I think 74 points. That sounds, and 30 goals. That sounds like a number 1 center to me.
That sounds like a number 1 center to me. And it's not like he's just an offensive guy, much like, back in the day, we would say Koivu was more of a 2-way guy. Rossi's kind of, or more of a defensive guy. So Rossi's kind of everything you want in a player. And I guess the biggest critique is his size, but in this type of game, in the NHL in 2025, size isn't necessarily the biggest thing. It's speed, and if you can just stay healthy and not get bulldozed by these big guys.
Like I think that's where Rossi went out. He thinks the game at such a high level. He knows where to go all the time. And to your point about his defense, 2.15 expected goals against per 60 this year, 2.00 goals against per 60. Like both very, very good defensive numbers. Are they Selke numbers? Not quite, but we're still talking like top 25 centers in terms of his defensive impact. And you add a top 25 defensive impact with a top essentially 15 to 20 offensive impact, and you've got a really, really good center. And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. And like, he's so good in the corners. Now, look, against bigger bodies, it's not like he loses them all. He's smart with his stick. He's smart with his positioning. And yeah, like if a big guy's going to hit him, he's going to go down, but he doesn't get hit because no one can catch him. And it's not even that like he's blazing speed. You just said it. Like he's a smart player. He knows where to be. And he's got like some nastiness in the corner, fetching pucks in the boards. And the biggest thing is confidence. When you have confidence and you go to chase pucks, when you have confidence and you're playing that 2-way game, when you have confidence and you're playing a defensive style, that's what you need, especially for a guy of his stature. And dude, even playing junior, he was the smaller guy. So he's never, it's not like he went from junior to NHL and it was like, oh God, like I was the big guy down there. And small here. It's like, no, dude, he's been small his whole career, and playing in, the OHL, respectively. There's some monsters down there as well, that he skated circles around back then. So, and just with his story too, with all this health issues, and which really could have derailed his career, or at least like brought it down a notch from our expectation of his ceiling. It's like, dude, his ceiling, it might even be higher than we originally thought, which is
it's been great to see. And there's really nothing like that. I see him like, obviously right now he's whatever, like 2 points per game across his last like 5. Like, is that sustainable? Of course not. But like everything else, like, can he continue to be about a point per game player? Like, yeah, I don't see why not. Like, can he continue to impact the game on both sides of the ice? Yeah, I don't see why not. Like, it's a guy at this point, like, hey, chuck him on the penalty kill at this point. Like, see if he can impact the game in that way, because we really haven't seen him in those spots much either. So, great to see. And I think it'll be really interesting. Like, I think, we've heard like the trade discourse start to die down on him too. And like, I think if anything,
this market just wants to trade whoever like doesn't score within like 2 games. Like, I hope these people just shut the fuck up about Boldy now, because that pissed me off.
Yeah, at least like Rossi, there was some truth to it. Like, he was being like, they were listening. But I think at this point, if you're a Wild fan, like, no, you don't want to trade him. But like, the thing is, if you do, like, your return is going to be a significant piece.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's a similar player with more size. Like, that's the kind of trade I think you're looking at now, versus like, maybe before you're maybe selling low. Now you're like, it's a sell high.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, to a degree, I obviously agree with hot takes, but like, it's so different than even what it was 10 years ago. And the thing is, he doesn't get hit, right? So like, yeah, the refs allow more nastiness, but like, he doesn't get hit. Whereas like Kaprizov allows himself to get friggin' sandwiched when he like weaves through a few guys. And when the refs are calling less, like, I don't want to say easier to shut down, because he's Kaprizov. He's not easy to shut down, but you know what I mean? Just the way that he plays versus Rossi, it's a little bit of a different style where like, yeah, obviously size matters more in the playoffs, but like, I am not concerned at all with Marco Rossi. I'm more concerned with Zuccarello, for example, in the playoffs, who's a similar size and stature, right?
Yeah. And I think if you doom scrolled my profile long enough, you'd maybe find the retweet. But there was a graphic, I want to say it was toward the end of last year, and it was like 4 of the last 5 Stanley Cup winners were like bottom 8 in the league, and like, it was either weight or height. Like, the point was like, yeah, we say size matters, but it doesn't really. Like, it's your ability to skate, keep up, and I've always said like, skill always wins.
Fourth line matters more in the playoffs than it
like,
ever does. Well, my exact Hoppy, if he's watching, is gonna roll his eyes for various reasons. But like, the Washington Capitals, obviously Ovechkin, obviously Backstrom, obviously Oshie, those are the guys they leaned on. Dude, Devontae Smith-Pelly and Jay Beagle, if they didn't play, the best of their abilities with the minutes that they got in the playoffs, the Capitals would not have won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and like it's skill still matters, because like, we've seen like, like Nick Delory and Ryan Reeves and Matt Rempe, like, they're big guys and they're physical, but like, they're not good. But like Marcus Foligno, Yakov Trenin, like, they are good. They're big and they can impact the game. So like, I think that's what's overlooked, is you can simply look at the tail of the tape. It's how we're smaller, we're less physical. It's like, but our big players are actually good. Eriksson Ek and Foligno and Trenyan. It's like, these guys actually do something and impact the game. So I think that's the more important part for me, is like, size matters, but only if the players can do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And hot takes, like, I see him go to the dirty areas. He just doesn't have to all the time, but like, when he does, he doesn't lose those battles as often as I think people think, because they look at him and go, oh, he's small.
Yeah. Well, watch closer, because he does. He'll go into the corner. He battles out in front of the net a lot. Like, it's
especially like in particular, like the first 20 games I noticed, like, really, and maybe it was just like him proving himself to the boys and the coach, and like, look, like, I'm here to do everything, not just score and be that perimeter guy. And obviously Kaprizov's louder when he does it, because he's Kaprizov. He plays a louder, more skilled game, and again, he's always weaving through guys, whether it's through the blue line or up the boards as well. But no, man, watch it. And maybe the reason you're missing is because no one's knocking him off the puck.
Well, I think it's too, like we talked about, his intelligence. Like, he makes simple plays. Like, He makes smart decisions with the puck. He's not getting into the fling it across ice, the teammate to teammate that Zuccarello and Kaprizov do, because he's the one maybe making the smart pass. Or, it's even little things in the D zone. He picks up the right guy, makes the breakout easier. It's the little details like that I think have really maybe gotten overlooked with him as well.
Yeah, I'm just excited because, I mean, from the moment he was drafted, we were excited that he was part of this organization. There were some hiccups, and it's just like he's continued to check boxes. His trajectory is awesome, and it's like we don't have to wait till he's 25 and 26 necessarily for him to pop. Like, it's like, okay, this is the year, and I know I've been loving watching this kid play, and I've been really happy with his progression this year. It's a joy to watch. It's a joy to watch.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, luckily we don't have Matt Rempe on our outline today, Mateo. Brett's new favorite player. It's like Ryan Reeves, Matt Rempe.
Just like the thing that he had, the status that he has more suspensions than points. Like, what are you doing? Why?
Oh, but you know what, Brett? The Wild have the new Rempe coming up, and they're going to need him to win some playoff games in a couple years. Our boy, Stevie.
That guy's insane.
Oh, I love Stevie Lescover. Did you see Z's tweet the other day? He was like, between Isha's messages in our group chat and his retweets, this guy must be on all the THC seltzers tonight. Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, anything else you want to dive into in regards to Rossi, or should we get into our Puck Your Opinions? The meat on the bone, the fun segment post holidays.
Let's get to the fun.
I just want to say, Puck Your Opinion.
All right. What do we got for the masses, Brett?
Yeah, so if you follow the NHL's Twitter account, they have been like unveiling these like quarter century teams. So it's kind of like the way the NHL does at the end of the year. Like they have the first and second team. So it's like best players of that franchise from the last 25 years, which obviously for the Wild, it's kind of cool because that's how long we've been around. Like this is year 25 of their existence with their debut in 2000. So I thought it'd be cool for us to like take that maybe like one step deeper. The Wilds came out, I think, like 2 days ago. They had a first and second team. Like, admittedly, like for once the NHL, I think mostly got it right. Like it was a pretty solid list. A couple of tweaks I'd make, but like the first team, I think was perfectly done. I think the first team all stars were, I think it was Kaprizov, Koivu, was it Parisi? I think no, it was Kaprizov, Gaborik, Koivu, Brodin, Spurgeon, and Backstrom. I was like, yep, 10 out of 10. Yep. No notes. Like that is the top, like if you talked about the five, like Backstrom's maybe the one you could debate, but I think
okay, I don't know. I think he's an absolute shoo-in, but
I don't think he's the shoo-in. Like I think he's the one, but I think I think Dubnyk has an argument there close for just what the teams did when he came over, but Backstrom I think had the longevity, I think, is what gives him the edge there. But so I thought it'd be cool for us to, instead of just a first line or a second line, basically to do a full 20-man roster. And then we also did a coach and some honorable mentions. So,
I just want to show everybody too, like Brett and I, we, even on our outline, we hid them. So we don't know who picked what here. So this will be
like this is true debate. There's nothing scripted, like live reaction, hockey tubers react.
All right. So. Well, how do you want to do this then? How do you want to do this?
Maybe just like
reveal like the wingers.
Position by position. I think would be good.
All right. I will unhighlight it here. You know what? I'll just share this again. All right. Let's do this. Who do you got? Boop. And who do I have? All right.
Oh, you did go Okay, Bugard's on there. So like. The question I'll start with, like, did you think of this as you were actually kind of trying to like build out like a team? Like, did you want role players, or did you just kind of choose the 20 best players, or something?
I did a little bit of both. I did like role players, like not just fan favorites, but like role players both on and off the ice, and some that like I couldn't leave Gaborik off the list, right? I couldn't leave Parise off the list. But yeah, all right. So Brett's got Kaprizov, Gaborik, Zuccarello, Parise, Granlund, Burnett, I knew Niederreiter would be on there for yours, and Rolston. I got Gaborik, Bugard, Kaprizov, Parise, Burnett, Zuccarello, Pominville, and Rolston.
So our difference are Bugard and Pominville versus Granlund and Niederreiter. Okay.
Honestly, you could make it. I mean, Bugard, as far as like if we're playing a skill game, if we're playing in today's game, he's probably going to be the one left off. But like, there's no doubt the impact that he made with the Wild, and there's
just like
there's a reason they kept him on the team,
like,
despite him not being able to skate.
Well, and he put butts in seats, right? Like
100%.
Like he people wanted to go to games to watch Derek Bugard fight, but like again, he wasn't like a total waste of space. Like he still had some skill. Like did he score a lot? No, but I think like he could impact games with big hits, and he wasn't like a dirty player. Like I don't think he was a guy that was suspended a lot or anything like that. So it's like it wasn't like he was a rempy where the only thing he did was fight and get suspended, right? Like he was.
Dude, he was the guy. There's so many stories of like he didn't have to play a shift. It was during commercial break. They would just send him over the boards. He would do a lap and just stare down the other team, and they're like, "Oh fuck, yep, we're gonna smarten up."
I would want to screw around with him. Like I have no issue including him here just for like the sole purpose of the impact he had, kind of in other ways. It's almost like that Marcus Foligno impact, who I had a really really hard time. He might have made my honorable mentions. I debated a lot between it was him, Nino, and Granlund. I think were kind of my last three that I had, but there just hasn't been enough on the offensive side, and they haven't enough success yet, playoff wise. Not that other players did too, but those are some of the ones I was really close on. Niederreiter, like there's definitely like Pominville, arguably maybe had more impact or similar, but just it's a reason of bias. He's one of my all-time favorite players, so. Had to include him on there, and then I almost forgot about Ralston, and I was like kind of looking through like the all-time roster. I was like, oh,
and you're like, oh yeah, you get like he was one of their better players in the early 2000s.
One of the best goal scorers they've ever had.
Yeah, like you kind of had to. You kind of
had to. The clap bomb is iconic. So.
Yeah. For me, it was like Granville or Pominville. You know, I feel like they both were impactful. Granlund maybe a little bit more streaky, but when he was on, he was a little bit more dangerous. Yeah. Whereas Jason Pominville, you knew what you got from you knew what you got with him, and he was a little bit more consistent. And I mean, I thought Pominville was like great wherever he landed, with Buffalo notably and the Wild. So that one was tough for me. I had to pick between both of those guys. Bugard for me, like I mean, everybody knows the style of hockey that Isha likes over here. So he was he was an absolute shoo-in. He was honestly the first guy that I was like, all right, well, Bugard's gonna be on here. But okay, very similar between ours, especially adding Brunette, Parise. All right, I like it. All right, so we reveal the centers.
Let's go.
And chiming in the chat too, guys. If you're watching live on YouTube, I know Mateo's chiming in as well. All right, let's go for centers. Brett's got Koivu, Eriksson Ek, Eric Stahl, and Pierre-Marc Bouchard. I got Wes Walls, Pierre-Marc Bouchard, Pavel Demitra, and Joel Eriksson Ek.
Yeah, like this was like I knew my 1-2 punch was Koivu and Eriksson Ek. Like that was dead even, easy peasy, and then. The last two, like I had like I think I had like 4 or 5 different players.
This one was tough.
Times. Like
this one was tough
because there's so many different things. Like Walls and Bouchard was one I really really went back and forth on, because like Walls was really really good 2-way player,
and he was part of that. He was part of the team that went on their only run, right?
Yeah, and just like the penalty kill impacts, and obviously like just I think. Did he end up being like? Oh, I think that's when they were rotating captains, but I think like often letters on his chest, and I was so close, but Stahl got the nod from me first. Like just to this day, I think one of the best free agent signings I've ever had. Like he came in, locked down kind of that top 6 center along with Koivu. Like we saw some really good runs with those two. Really good goal scorer. I think he's second now behind Kaprizov. I think Kaprizov's passed him up, but for a while he was the franchise leader with 42 that one season. A bunch of empty netters, but that's irrelevant. So I felt like I had to include him here. And then Bouchard, I really wanted to get in at the end because I'm like, I think people forgot how good he was. And unfortunately, concussions kind of just took him out of hockey. Like he was a really, really good player.
Stupidly skilled. Like,
yeah,
and he was so fast at the time when the NHL wasn't a speed game too, which I think is overlooked.
Like obviously the spinorama goal is what he's probably most remembered for. But like he was so fun to watch. I think a lot of people forget just how good he was. And I think like for me, when you talk about a franchise that hasn't had it up until probably these last couple of years, like exciting offensive players, he was too memorable for me in that sense to leave him off. So that's why I gave him the edge over Walls, because it was a little bit more of the boring stuff. And Walls' speed too. I think that was one thing that separated him in the same way to Bouchard. But those two were really, really close. I think I flipped that one out like 6 or 7 times and then finally decided on Bouchard.
Look, I know I probably should have put Koivu on this. I knew Brett was going to, but the reason I put Pavel Demitra over him was I know he only played 2 seasons for the Wild, or like 2.5 or whatever it was. But if you look at like his numbers playing with the Wild, if he would have stayed longer, he could have been that top center that they never had. Like 40 goals, 78 points in like 139 games with them. Like this is crazy numbers, dude.
Yeah, I believe he is one of my honorable mentions. Part of it was I couldn't remember if he was a center or a wing. I thought he was a center. But he's right in that mix for me with probably like Walls and Bouchard. Like if there was a tier, I think I'd have all 3 of them in it.
Because I think he was
him and Gabrick for like I think it was 2 seasons were just like magic. It was kind of a Kaprizov Zuccarello type connection. Because they're both Slovakian too, I think, right?
Yeah, he is. Yep. Yeah. And I mean, tragic. I mean, rest in peace, right? I mean, tragic way. He was involved in that KHL plane accident. I think it was the year after he played for the Vancouver Canucks, actually. So, he was like towards the end of his career there. But I remember watching him with the Wild. And when he came out of Vancouver, he played well, even in like a bottom 6 role when I was growing up there. And I remember hearing about that accident. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. It's insane, man. But I that one might have been a little bit biased, but the numbers backed it up, even though it was short-lived.
Yeah.
All right.
Mateo has a comment there I think we can address quick before we get into defense goalies. Like Boldy, and I think like I was close to including Rossi in the centers too, but like I was like, all right, we just hyped him up that much. Like, let's see him do it for a couple seasons, I think. And then Boldy is like, he's right there for me. I think it's how does he finish out this season? How does next season look? But then I think like he's quickly like bumps several of these guys down. But I want to see one or 2 more seasons of it, and then I'm ready to throw him in there, I think.
PNP, what's up? Good to see you. Says I like to instruct Zuki to let him score more goals instead of assisting. He's been shooting more lately. I'll say that. He's been shooting more lately. Kaprizov's actually been passing him the puck a lot too. So there you go. Before I reveal the defenseman, I just have to tell Hoppy, like, I didn't put Petteri Numelin on this list, but I got to give a shout out to him. One of the greatest, if not the greatest, shootout player in NHL history with a 80% shootout rating. I remember we had Wes Walls on the podcast, and Hoppy was like I think he was asking him like, who do you think my favorite like player is, or something like that, and Walls like, I don't know, and he's like Petteri Numelin. Walls like, did not expect that. and then Hoppy explained why, because he was an absolute wizard in the shootout, and Walls was like, all right, I accept that. I played with him. I know him well.
The shoulder shimmy, man. Like, how could you forget it?
He's 80% in the shootout. Nobody has those numbers. It's insane. So anyways, a special shout out to Petteri Numelin. I'm actually going to get his name on my like retro Wild, not retro, but like the old Wild jersey that I have. Sweet. Yeah, because I mean, that'll be a cool one at the rink for someone to be like, oh yeah, that's that. Yeah. You don't see that one often. So
yeah, is he 33? Was that his number?
I believe so.
Nice. I do have like, if we want to go through honorable mentions by position too, I unhighlighted those. Some of the guys talked about Walls, Demitra. The 3 wings I had on there that were my next 3 up were Zucker, Fiala, and Dupuis.
Dupuis, Pascal. Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, Dupuis was really good. Like he was kind of like, another big part of that 03 or 01 run, whatever year it was. I can't even blank.
Well, then won a cup with Pittsburgh. So
it was really good alongside Crosby. Like I think he's a really good player. Fiala, like I had him in there, and then I'm just like, he wasn't here long enough for me to put him like on the all-time team.
Same.
And then Zucker, I just like, it was between Zucker and Niederreiter for me, kind of, and Granlund, and then I had Granlund. I think had a couple more of the bigger moments, a little more flash, a little bit more of the remembrance. Than I couldn't bounce Nino for Zucker, but those are probably my next year, and then Demitra there too.
I think Vanek low key as well.
Like, Vanek's a good one.
played only a couple years or 3 years here, but like,
Koivu not even an honorable mention for you? Come on, man.
oh, I mean, he probably should have. That's my bad. That's my bad.
No, it's all good.
Honestly, no. Okay, that is actually my bad. I was supposed to switch him up with Jason Zucker. So there you go. There you go. But anyways, that wasn't an intentional shot at Brett.
Yeah.
All right. So where we're at defense now.
Okay. So you had what I had originally, and then I changed it last second.
Okay. So you got Spurgeon, Brodin, Suter, Faber, Schultz, and Dumba. Schultz is a good one. And I go, yeah, Spurgeon, Suter, Brodin, Burns, Kuba, and Faber. I think Kuba's a forgotten, solid defenseman that the Wild had for a good chunk of years as well.
Not forgotten by me though. He was my next one up. He was the one I was
There
debating
you
my
go.
last one. So
There you go.
yeah, he was kind of like the guy they leaned in a ton. Like I remembered him scoring a lot more. Like when I looked at his stats, like I think his highest season was like
30 something.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was like 29. I was like, it really felt like he had a season where it was like 40. Like I felt like on the power play, like he was a lot. But yeah, so he was close for me. My last two, like the one I debate a lot, were Schultz and Dumba. Schultz I decided on, like he was kind of Brodin before the Wild had Brodin. Like he was kind of that shutdown veteran presence. Like he was here forever. Like just one of those players. Like he actually like was a lot like Suter too. I think like never did anything like super crazy exciting, but was just steady, reliable. And then Dumba I put in last because if you have Schultz, we can go Schultz and I go.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, and for whatever this is worth, in like all the NHL games we played growing up, like he was always like 85, and it never changed. He was like 84, 85, just always a solid, top four defenseman.
Yeah, and then my last one was hard. Like I debated, like I had Dumba here at one point, I had Kuba in here, I had Zidlicki, Burns. I wanted to, but like it was more of a like he wasn't electric here. Like he was good, but he wasn't great. It was after he left that he was great. So I think like there's a little bit like of sticker shock when you see the names. Like, oh, the Wild had Brent Burns, and it's like, yeah, before you blew up.
Yeah, but like you said, there, like it was before he blew up, and he wasn't the superstar Burns, but like he was still like one of their top guys.
Well, like I also have a hard time too remembering like which seasons he played forward, which seasons he played defense when it was a mix. So
I almost put him at a wing just to as a wing honorable mention for the jokes, for the memes.
So, but like I think we forget like how good Dumba was, like especially pre-fighting injury. Like that season,
that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, but like that season up until that point, I think he had like 11 goals that year and was on pace.
He was on pace for 30, I think, wasn't
it? Yeah, it was on pace to be like a top 11 season goals wise by a defenseman all time in NHL history. It would be like the first to hit 30, I think, since like Mike Green in like 8, I think it was. So like that's how good he was, and like he had some really strong seasons. And unfortunately, that like he got that fight with Matthew Tkachuk, got the shoulder injury, and never been the same since. And like I think there's a lot of sour taste for just like how much it declined, especially kind of his last 2 years here. But I think you look at just the impact on the community, like the clear impact he had in the locker room, those seasons that he did have, and like all of that together for me, like
how he helped elevate Brodin too, right? Because they came in at pretty much the same time. They were the defense pairing pretty much their whole time here. So like you got to give some credit where credit is due to Dumba for helping solidify what Brodin became, right?
Yeah, it was almost like the Bugard pick for you, where it's like it was some of the on ice stuff, but all the stuff beyond it too.
Yeah,
like was kind of gave me the edge to get him in as my number 6.
Yep, no, I love that. So I got Spurgeon, Suter, Brodin, Burns, Kuba, Brock, Faber, and my honorable mentions were, I think I had an extra one here. Yeah, Zidlicki was my extra one. I know we're supposed to only add 3, but and look, Willie Mitchell didn't put up. Too. Yeah, oh, sick. Willie Mitchell didn't put up a lot of points with the Wild, but like Willie Mitchell was never known for that. I mean, even in junior. Funny enough, he played in Prince George.
Kind of a Jake Middleton type almost.
Yeah.
I mean, not this season Jake Middleton, but like up to the season Jake Middleton.
No, yeah, and I've always liked Willie Mitchell, and again, no Canucks bias here at all. Like I was a fan of Willie Mitchell before he was even a Canuck. I was a fan of him when he was with the Wild, and just because on the stat sheet, historically putting together these lists, sometimes there's not Mitchell played that wasn't his game. He was a defenseman through and through.
Yeah. He's a good one to honorable mention there. So, all right, goalies. I don't know if that's my connection that's frozen or yours.
It didn't like me updating. All right, here we go.
Oh,
I have StreamYard just doesn't like me going on Google Docs. Anyways, we'll continue to roll through it. So you have,
there we go.
all right, we're back. You have, where are we? Backstrom and Rolly. And I got Backstrom and Rolly. There we
Yeah,
go.
there we are. Yeah, I know I touted Dubnyk early on too, but like I think Dubnyk was the one that got second team All-Star on the Wild post, and that was like one of the ones I disagree with a little bit. It's tough because like Backstrom was he was the face of Wild goaltending for so long.
Well,
Like,
and he was one of the best in the league for
yeah, he
like
was
a few years as well.
So steady. Yeah, like there were seasons where I think he was in Vezina conversation. Like the seasons where it was Backstrom and Harding, like gosh, and Josh Harding, it stinks that he had MS and had to, and I think, that's a disease that never goes away. Like he was, I think, on the verge of becoming one of the best goaltenders in the league when that diagnosis happened. So, but like they had that duo of Backstrom and Harding for a while. They were awesome. But like, I think people forget like prime Rolly, how good that guy was.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Rolison Fernandez tandem that took him to the deep playoff run the 1 year. Like he was awesome. Like I think I didn't have a Rolison jersey. I think I really wanted one. But the Rolly the goalie thing as a kid, there was some nostalgia factor there. And I just think like, it was more memorable to me, some of his accomplishments than Dubnyk, but it was really, really close in between those two. Like if you had the other one there and flipped it,
Yeah,
like
if you had Fernandez instead of Rolison or either of those two, like, what's crazy? If you look back, like the history of the Wild, like they've had a lot of good goalies.
Yeah.
A lot of good goalies.
And not very many that they drafted and developed, which is the weird part. Like these guys they've traded for, plucked off of waivers, like second chance guys. Like but yeah, we've been pretty lucky overall. So I think that's why when we had like those couple seasons with declining Dubnyk and like Kakkonen and that stuff, there was like, oh my God, goaltending is the worst thing in the world. But like, yeah, we've been I think pretty lucky, especially when you look at other teams and just the struggles they've had since they lost certain players and different things like that. But
if only they got Brizgalov in his prime. He couldn't even friggin' stop a beach ball when he played his 8 games with the Wild that 1 year.
Yeah,
PTO with Edmonton the next year, and commentator for the Players Tribune, which honestly he crushed it with them that year. But he's a character. Time low. The universe so humongous big. All right, Coach Brett, who do you got here as your top coach? You got Dino. And for me, it's good old Jacques Lemaire.
Yeah, he didn't be my runner up. But yeah, like this was a hard one. Like I had to, like, there was Wild teams that were really good, and you looked at who coached it, and you're like, was that kind of a fluke for him? Like,
Mike Yo.
Yeah. Boudreaux was in the mix for me. He just wasn't, unfortunately, here long enough for me to put him as the all-timer. Like, I still do believe that, like, I don't think, like, Dean Evison was a great coach to me. Like, I think he did a lot of really good things. Like, the Wild had their best. I mean, the tipping point for me was the Wild's best ever season was under Dean Evison. Like, he coached the entire team to career years, pretty much that year. Obviously, the wheels fell off at the end, but I still maintain that, like we talked about, I think on this show, I wrote the blog on like the numerical differences between like Evison and Hines, and it was pretty marginal for the most part. The big difference was Hines goalies made saves, and the same goalies with Evison struggled, like were the worst tandem in the league. Like the poor goaltending got him fired, and then like a gazillion injuries. Like he was playing like whatever. Like there was that stretch where they were playing with like a $35 million cap hit because they had so many players hurt and had these like minor league call-ups. Like I don't think a lot of what happened last year was his fault, and I think you look at what he's done with Columbus this year, and how he's turned that team around. He's getting more out of a lot of those guys too. Like look at the season, like Sean Monahan, obviously like playing with a heavy heart this year, like playing with something to prove too, like probably playing the season for Johnny, but he's been revitalized like in a lot in the ways we saw a guy like Ryan Hartman really explode under Evison, right? So I think he did a lot of good things, and I think for me, like the validation that Columbus is also playing well, like solidifies my opinion that, I think it was less about him and more about just everything else that happened in poor goaltending.
Yeah. I mean, I love Dino. I thought, and I know Bruce didn't coach the Wild to their best season, but I feel like the Wild were one of the top teams in the division under Bruce and were just as hard to play against. So that's why I had him here. And like Dino, players coach. The boys loved him. And everywhere Bruce Boudreau goes, the teams love him. Whether it was Washington, whether it was with the Anaheim, whether it was with the Canucks, whether it was with obviously Minnesota. And I feel like Dino's that same type of coach, whether it was in the minors. I mean, and Bruce too in the minors, the boys loved him as well. And, you know, whether it was in the minors, the big show here at the Wild, and now, like you said, in Columbus. So it for me, I went back and forth on putting Bruce and Dino as my honorable mention. But I mean, I had to put Jacques Lemaire in my number one because, again, that playoff run, historic, in the Wild haven't seen that success in the playoffs since.
Yeah, and I think like he's another one. I think like his tenure is a little bit overshadowed by just how poorly managed the team and organization was. Like, we can't talk enough about how bad they drafted. I think it was 04 to 09. Like, it's not Jacques Lemaire's fault. He didn't have young, talented players to help get the team better. And like, they were stuck in the murky middle. Like, that's not the coach's fault. Like, at some point that's becomes a team building problem. So, but I think you look at, like, we've even referenced it, like this, Jacques Lemaire would be very proud of the way that this year's Wild team plays with the defensive systems that they employ, some of the low scoring games. Like, it's similar to how he used to coach. Like, and that wasn't just a Wild thing. Like, that was his MO, but like people remember the Jacques Lemaire Wild. Like, I think that's like, it was closer between him and Evason, but I think like my tipping point was, one, the best season ever, and then two, it was which hockey did I enjoy watching more, the Lemaire Wild or the Evason Wild? And it was the Evason
fair. Although
Wild.
he would have fixed the fucking penalty kill.
He probably would have. Like, hey, if he wants to come back still, I think he's still out there somewhere. But
all right, let's get to the chat here because we actually have some good suggestions too. Zoltalk and Curtis Foster. What's up, Swerve? I love it. PNP Alexander Daigle. Where Zanovka and Matt Johnson, Aaron Voros. Hey, all good candidates, all guys who like barely hit the honorable mention. Again, we said this at the beginning, but it was tough because it was either like there's the top tier guys, then there's like a bunch of mid tier guys, and a lot of the mid tier guys only played 2 to 3 seasons with the Wild, so it was kind of like who you gonna pick. So like, I went with like, you know, Dimitra. You went with like Dupuis. We both went with Kuba, Zidlicki versus some of these other guys as well. But I love the suggestions. And for those who are watching this, later as this is posted, if you guys missed us live, like in the comments, hit us up with any of your suggestions, anyone you agree with, don't agree with, or just your list as well. Because obviously this is like personal preference, but also drawing from like what type of team you would have liked to see as a quarter century team, as well as the coaching. Goalie, it's kind of like Brett said, Wild have been spoiled throughout their years with goalies, so you could kind of roll with.
There's not even like there, like, as long as you choose a goalie that was like the main starter for an entire season, like I don't think there's even a wrong answer. Like, I briefly debated putting Gustafsson in there because of how good he was in that first year that we had him,
3,
and how good he's been now. Like, yeah, there was that little blip in between, but like, if you go back, like Dubnyk had bad seasons, Backstrom had bad seasons. I think it's fresh. It's fresher in our memory, so it feels like, I don't know, you can't include that. But like, yeah, they've had really, really good goaltending. Like, I don't think there's really a wrong answer for that one. And coach,
sorry, if he was part of that. He was part of that run. He beat his former team in Vancouver. I grew up on the West Coast, so I'm like, I even have a picture somewhere with Cliff Ronning. I love Cliff Ronning, but like, he played 1 year with them. Like, you can't put him on the the argument. You could make an argument because of how impactful he was, and again, that the storyline against Vancouver, but like, it was just 1 year. I don't think he could be on this. If he played 2, maybe, and put up like, again, what was it, like 48 to 50 points 2 years in a row, maybe, but like, this was, I don't think the Wild was his last year in the NHL, but like, it was close, right?
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Yeah, they had a couple. They got a lot of guys kind of on the way out. They had the couple of the guys from LA that like went on the cup runs with them that came up. Like, I can't even remember. Like, was it Trevor Lewis that they had briefly?
Lewis, dude. Yeah.
He played for like, they just some like these like random guys on their way out. Like, The one I always remember is Daniel Winnick, because that was like one of
Daniel Winnick.
I was like one of Jewel Eriksson X like first line mates. Like, why does Eriksson X suck? It's like because I'm aligned with Daniel Winnick. like that's why. But
oh man, that's a name I forgot about. But no, yeah, love Cliff Ronning, man, especially being from growing up on the west coast of Canada. And yeah, if he would have played, like I said, another year here, I would have 100% at least tried to make an argument to put him on the honorable mention. Sweet guys. Well, this was a lot of fun. There's one more comment here I missed. Beta, shout out to Beta. He one of our newer subscribers who joined us during the World Junior stream says Avalanche dropped the ball hard versus the Blackhawks. Hope the Wild are ready for a hungry and angry Colorado Avalanche. I say bring it on, because the Wild are actually beating teams in their division now.
Yeah. And I think Colorado started like a backup goalie tonight too. So I think we get not that Blackwood's like a world beater by any means, but
what do you mean? He's almost a $6 million goalie, bro.
Yeah, crazy. So I mean, like you look at teams that like, when's the last time the Avalanche had a good goalie? Like I don't remember.
Kemper.
Yeah,
but he might be Canada's goalie.
Yeah, but he was kind of like a one season wonder for them too. Like they haven't.
He's a one season on, one season off, one season on, one. So like, look what he's doing with LA. His numbers are crazy with them right now.
Yeah, like there probably was some like after Patrick Waugh, but like you talk about like the Wild, like we had Backstrom forever, and then it was Dubnyk for a while. Like the Avalanche haven't had that, and I think like imagine if they did have really good goaltending, like when they were healthy with that like Landeskog, Rantanen, McKinnon, Makar core. Like if they had a legitimate like good goalie on that team, like I think they could have pushed Tampa Bay and Boston and like some of those Eastern teams and like been like a mini dynasty there. But
you need goaltending to win cups, man.
Yeah, it'll be fun though. I mean, games against the Avalanche are always fun. There's always the high energy. Obviously sucks if they're without potentially Kaprizov and Faber. Sounds like there might be some speculation. I don't know if you were on Twitter much today, but that's actually like a concussion potentially for Faber. Okay, may have taken an elbow from I think it was Neighbors. It was kind of a fluky play. It was a little bit of a high hit, but it was one of those where like Faber kind of dumped the puck and he was like leaning forward, kind of like a half squat type of thing, where it's like, yeah, could you have kept your elbow down? Yes, but like if Faber's upright, that probably goes right through his chest, or maybe gets up toward the chin. Like it's that borderline. So I don't think it was dirty. I think it was more of a play happened fast and it was an unfortunate result type of thing. And then Kaprizov, he hasn't. I don't think he's been skating quite yet, so I don't think he'll be ready quite yet. But it sounds like he's getting closer at least. So hopefully getting closer to being healthy. But exciting thing is we might get a Jiricek debut tomorrow. Which that's always fun to see a top prospect make his debut, and what better way to do it than on home ice against the Avalanche?
No, yeah, absolutely. And knock on wood that getting the wave of injuries out of the way before the end of the season, so that this team is healthy enough.
I literally said to a coworker today, is like, it sucks, but I'm like, I'd rather have it now than in late March or early April.
Yeah, because this is the National Hockey League. Every team is banged up all the time. But like, if we can have the key guys healthy towards the end for the playoffs, that's way more important. That's way more important. So
absolutely.
If we have to extend their time off mid-season with the runway that the Wild have built already, I'm perfectly fine with that. If it means, let's make sure this is good, not nagging, and not easily, re-aggravated. So that, in the next 40 games, dude, we're at the halfway point. We're at the halfway point right now.
Well, I think that's kind of what's going on with Kaprizov right now. I think it's very much like
let's not rush him. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if this was the playoffs, like I think he's probably in the lineup, right? Like it's one of those injuries, but it's like, hey,
or if they're fighting for a playoff spot, like if there's like 10 games left and they need, they need 5 out of those 10 games, like he's playing.
Yeah. So yeah. And I think, they've seen some of these guys have stepped up well, but I think we're starting to see like this is a team that still could really much use Kaprizov back, especially now with Boldy kind of going again. Like, hey, you got, Ek, I think, has goals in back-to-back games. Hartman has like 5 points in his last 4. Like maybe all of a sudden your second line is now, once Kaprizov comes back, you have Kaprizov, Rossi, Zuccarello, and then you have an Eriksson Ek, and then maybe it's Boldy and Hartman, right, on that line, and then maybe Johansson slides down with maybe it's I don't know how it levels out after that, because then you'd have Foligno and Goudreau and Trennian, which have been pretty good, but is Johansson slide in there and Goudreau goes to the fourth line? I don't know, but good problem to have when you can rearrange your bottom 6, however you want. But it'd be a good time for him to come back. Certainly the way they're playing and for his MVP chances. But again, I think ultimate thing is we want him when he comes back to be 100% and not 85 or 90.
Yeah, no, for sure. Hey, they may not be a May squad, but they're definitely going to be an April squad. There you go. And yeah, I mean the West is very competitive, which is it's good to see. Not like the East, not that the East is like getting worse, but it's good to see like the pendulum starting to swing again, because I feel like it goes back and forth on like who are, you know, what conference is like the harder conference, right? The tougher conference, the deeper conference, and you know the last few years it's been the East, and now like the West is starting to rise again, which is I mean maybe not the greatest for the Wild, but the Wild are part of that. Now they're making up as, you know, part of that hard to play against West squad, which is cool to see.
Yeah, there's like teams like 500, I think, that are like in the Eastern Conference wild card right now. So
yeah, there you go.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, look at like the Wild beat up on the East, and they've had a harder time against the West, but just because the West is better again.
There you go. We're back, baby. We're back. Where can the folks find you, and what do you got coming up with player cards, blogs, the whole 9 yards?
Yeah, so probably won't have player cards tomorrow. It is my girlfriend's younger sister's 21st, so we'll actually be out celebrating that tomorrow night. So
Nice.
I probably won't get to cards tomorrow. So those will probably come Friday, late morning, early afternoon instead. But otherwise, hoping this year, like now that the holidays are kind of past and my schedule's way less crazy and I'm not nearly as tired, those will continue to come out as they did last night after the game's complete. West Coast games are a little more iffy, but ones that are out east or here in Minnesota, usually we'll get those up after the game. And then the newsletter, again, that goes out every Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. If you subscribe on Substack, goes right into your email inbox. Otherwise, I post it on Twitter every Tuesday around 10 a.m. too as well. So it's kind of that second wave there. But don't know what my topic's going to be next week, but had a really fun time kind of writing this one. Talked a little bit off the hop, but it's just like looking into the Wild's penalty kill, a little bit of analytics, a little bit of tactics, and then actually looked a little bit of film too and kind of sketched out some things and ran through that. So that'll keep coming. That'll be weekly. And then of course, we hope to be back to kind of a regularly scheduled program every Wednesday here as well. So although I think they might have a game next Wednesday, so maybe we'll be a Tuesday or Thursday next week.
Yeah, we'll let you guys know. But we'll be back weekly is the point of it. We'll be back weekly is the point of it. Swerve asked me in the chat here. I will be back streaming next week. I know there were some great Wild games here. We want to keep the momentum going on the channel, but I streamed a lot of World Juniors. And I just busy work week. One of my clients is launching their whole YouTube channel and brand Friday, so I just want to make sure that that's all done. But yeah, I'll be back to streaming Wild games next week. I will schedule them all either Sunday or Monday, so you'll see them all pop up on the channel. Big shout out again to everybody who joined us for the World Juniors. We have a ton of new subscribers on the channel, a ton of new members on the channel. For members out there as well, Hoppy and I met today, and we'll be posting a video soon, basically asking you guys, members and maybe people considering becoming members of the channel, what exactly you want to see from us, what kind of extra content you want to see from us here at the Sota Pod Network, and we'll give some ideas of things that we were thinking of, and we'll give you guys the opportunities to either shoot them down, say yes I like those, or ask for some other stuff. So that will be coming, and I just got to say a big shout out to Cosgrove, Vendetta, as well as Scott Young for gifting out members and for being longtime members of the channel. And we really didn't have anything to offer, but now that we have like 10 plus members and the channel is growing, we're definitely going to take that step forward and provide extra content for you guys as well. And then obviously, back to the Wild coverage and Four Nations as well. I'll be covering all the Four Nations games and more international stuff coming up here.
It's like that's going to be here before we know it. Like it's going to come up so fast.
I mean, this month went by so fast, and I imagine, or last month went by so fast, and January is gonna go by quick as well. So it's gonna be awesome.
Like I think we are already 2 weeks past Christmas. Like Christmas was 2 weeks ago already. Like, that's insane.
Insane. Well, it's good to be back, but it's good to be back. I had a good holidays, and I'm stoked to see how the rest of this season turns out, and it's gonna be good, man. So
thanks some good games coming up, and we'll tune in next week. I think, like I said, I think they have a Wednesday game, so we'll let you guys know if it'll be Tuesday or Thursday. But until then, see ya.
Peace.